He actually said to me, it depends on the context. It depends on the context? You want to know what that really means and why it's relevant in today's times? Come join me for a walk near the beach as I share with you the answer to that question. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. Okay, this was a medical malpractice case. I was questioning a physician in my client's medical malpractice case. This was a pretrial deposition, a question and answer session that was being done on a Zoom video call where the doctor swore to tell the truth. Now, what's interesting is that there was a court reporter there to record all of my questions and all of the doctor's answers. During the course of my questioning, I had asked the doctor a series of opinion questions, and one of the very first answers he gave me in response to an opinion question was, it depends on the context. I said, excuse me, doctor? I said, it doesn't depend on the context. I laid out for you the exact facts upon which we are talking about. Those are the facts that I want you to give me an opinion on. There is no other context. So let me rephrase for you the exact facts that I want you to consider. Now, why was that important? It's important for me to ask opinion questions to understand exactly what the doctor did and his thinking and his rationale. One of the things that I have an opportunity to do during this pretrial deposition is ask the doctor whether the care he rendered to my client was in accordance with good and accepted medical practice, whether it departed or deviated from the standard of care. Now, you might think for a second, wait a second. If I come right out and ask the doctor, hey, doctor, did you screw up? Did you violate the standard of care? He's going to say, of course not. And he's going to get defensive. And that's absolutely correct. That's not the right way to go ahead, in my opinion, to go ahead and ask a doctor whether or not he may have screwed up. There are various different ways to do that. And one of the ways is to establish, number one, what the standard of care is for this particular scenario. And that's critically important. So I will use the doctor's own words and his own testimony, and I will ask him, doctor, in a patient who presents with the following symptoms, the following problems, now would you agree that good medical practice requires that you do A, B, and C? And in all instances, the doctor will have to agree. Then I will take him down step by step and say, okay, doctor, now if the patient returns to your office, for example, and complains of the following things, you would agree that it would be critically important to take a detailed history, correct? Again, he has to say yes. And doctor, you would agree that after taking a detailed history, it would be critically important for you to perform a physical examination. Isn't that true? Yes. Again, he has to say yes. Why? Because that's the basic standard of medical care. And then I will continue asking him questions. Doctor, I want you to assume that the patient returned to you again. And now you determined that the patient needed to have diagnostic imaging, an MRI. Once you sent the patient out for an MRI, at some point after, you will get a report of that particular examination, that particular MRI, correct? Yes. And that report by a radiologist who interprets that MRI, you would agree that good medical practice requires that you read and interpret that particular report. Would you agree? Yes. And it's important for you to read that MRI report by the radiologist in order for you to plan this patient's ongoing course of treatment. Would you agree with that? And again, he has to say yes, because that is the standard of care. So now, during the course of this pretrial deposition, which, by the way, lawyers also call an examination before trial, I will ask the doctor many things about what is the standard of care. And later on, after I've had a chance to go through the details of the treatment that he rendered to my client, I will then ask the doctor hypothetical questions. Doctor, I want you to assume that Mr. Jones came into your office complaining of A, B, and C. You would agree, would you not, that good medical practice required that you take a detailed medical history, correct? Yes. Okay, now, assuming that you did not take a detailed medical history and failed to ask him about all of these things, that would be a departure from the standard of care, correct? And his response was, it depends on the context. I said, doctor, there is no other context. The only facts I want you to consider are the ones that I'm asking in this hypothetical question. His response was, I don't agree with the hypothetical facts that you're presenting. Doctor, I didn't ask you whether you agreed with the facts that I'm presenting. I asked you to assume that the facts I'm giving you are accurate and correct. In that instance, you would agree that if you failed to obtain a detailed medical history, that would be a departure from the standard of care. And what do you think he had to say? He had to say yes, of course. And ultimately he did. But His first gut reaction was to argue with me about semantics, about how I worded the question, and he wanted to phrase it in a way that was most favorable to him. But here I am asking very simple, basic questions. Doctor, I want you also to assume the following facts to be true. That when the patient returned to your office, now complaining of these additional things, you would agree that it's critically important that you obtain a detailed medical history and to perform a detailed physical examination, correct? And again, he has to say yes. But instead, he was playing games with me. And he turned around and he said, it depends on the context. I said, Doctor, was there something about the set of facts that I presented to you that you did not understand? And so his attorney started to jump in. We started to argue. I said, let me rephrase the question. In the context of this set of facts alone, would you agree that good medical practice requires that you, as a physician in this specialty, not only take a detailed medical history, but also perform a detailed physical examination? And again, he has to say yes. And would you agree, doctor, that good medical practice requires that you document the examination that you performed? Yes. And why is it important for you to document your findings on examination? And now the doctor again is going to tell me what the standard of care is and why it's important to do that. As I took him through step by step, asking him hypothetical questions, each time he said, it depends on the context. Now, why is that relevant in today's society? It's relevant because of a recent congressional hearing where various congressional members of Congress, asked the presidents of 3 colleges, MIT, University of Pennsylvania, and Harvard University, asked them critical questions about whether or not certain pro-Palestinian protests that were going on their campuses violated the rules of conduct for each of these schools. And you know what virtually every one of those 3 presidents of these universities said? Well, it depends on the context. Well, actually it doesn't, because the context was presented right to you during the course of those hearings. The context is why you are being questioned by members of Congress. What is the context? The context of somebody doing something improperly, and now you know fully well why you are there in front of Congress answering questions. The doctor who I was questioning in this medical malpractice case knew exactly what this case was about. He knew why he was being questioned in this particular case. He knew what the facts were, and he knew, because he had been sued in the past and had gone through this deposition process in the past, he knew exactly what I was doing when I would ask him hypothetical questions to get his opinion about whether or not he departed from the standard of care. So instead, he tried to play games, and he said, it depends on the context. We know what happened to the president of the University of Pennsylvania. She immediately resigned because of that nonsense. We know that the president of Harvard also stepped down as well, based upon all the pressure exerted because of her nonsense, ridiculous answers. And that's the same scenario that I faced in this particular case, where the doctor turned around and said, it depends on the context. The only context we're talking about in a medical malpractice case is the one involving my client, your former patient, and now the facts about treating her and what you did and why. That's the whole context. So why do I share this quick information with you? I share it with you just to open your eyes, to help you understand what occurs in these medical malpractice cases in New York. You know, I realize you're likely watching this because you have questions or concerns about your own matter. Well, if your matter did happen in New York and you are thinking about bringing a lawsuit, but haven't done so yet because you still have questions that need to be answered, what I invite you to do is pick up the phone and call me. You know, I answer questions like yours every single day, and I'd love to chat with you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, Gerry, at Oginski-law.com. That's it for today's video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.